Well Together Podcast. Welcome to Well Together Podcast. In each episode, inspiring conversations from wellness experts will guide you towards a better life. If you are ready, let's start our healthy life journey. In this episode,
once again, we find ourselves at TheLifeCo Phuket, where we are glad to host Dr. Chia. We delve into one of the most concerning subjects related to health and well-being, cancer-free living.
Welcome to another episode of Well Together Podcast. This is Dr. Phil. Topic for today is cancer-free living, how to eliminate inflammation, toxins, and other risk factors. First things first, when we talk about cancer, it is usually something that when we hear, it strikes fear in us all. But cancer really is just a word. It doesn't mean anything at all. But a lot of people just fear to hear that word. Truth of the matter is we all have cancer cells. That's a reality. But the thing is, when cancer becomes a problem, it means to say that these cancer cells have found a suitable place for them to live in, to grow, to destroy a certain organ. So that is what a lot of people are scared of. If we look at how cancer cells become cancer, it is usually a combination of a lot of factors. One could be genetic, but a lot of that would have to do with an environmental factor. A lot of that has to do with what you are used to doing on a regular basis. And if you are going through some habits that are not good for you, but still continuing doing those types of habits. What are we talking about? Things like smoking, things like drinking alcohol. These are known factors that we know are strongly linked to us developing more cancer cells, but there are some people who fall victims to having to do these things again and again and again. So it's like you're torturing your body, you're testing your body, you're just waiting for your body to want to turn into cancer cells. Now, cancer usually comes about, like I said earlier, when there is a combination of different factors. And one thing for sure that we all know is that cancer cells love certain things. One of the most common knowledge that we all have about cancer is that it loves sugar. But if you look at the things that we have nowadays, the day and age that we live in, everything is so high in sugar. So when we talk about sugar, the first thing that comes into mind definitely would be something that we are eating. So if one factor is that we don't really care what we're putting into our mouths, what we are consuming on a regular basis, this might be the reason why we are unconsciously feeding more sugar into our bodies. And like I said, we all have cancer cells. We might just create a very favorable environment for these cancer cells to want to become more, to want to become bigger, to want to become more expanding within our bodies. They thrive when there is a lot of sugar in the body. So if we are constantly exposed to food that would constantly get our sugar levels very high, it makes us more prone to develop cancer or let the cancer cells growing inside our bodies be more happy. We don't want them to be happy because we want them to go back to becoming normal cells. So that's another concept. Cancer cells become cancer cells because of certain factors, okay? Whether you're exposed to a certain environment that allows your body to become very, very acidic, that's one. Not enough oxygen in the body, that's another one. Too much sugar in the body, that's another one. Simply too much inflammation happening inside the body as well. If you're looking for ways on trying to live in a cancer-free lifestyle, we would want to look for ways on how to minimize the acidity of the body, control of as much inflammation in the body as possible, minimize the sugar content in whatever food or whatever meals that we are having that goes into the body, and providing as much oxygen as possible inside the body, inside the system. So if we are able to look for or comply to these types of strategies, we would be able to allow whatever cancer cells that are existing in our body to rethink whether or not they want to continue being cancer cells, or they would be encouraged to go back to becoming normal cells again. So there is definitely a possibility for cancer cells to revert back to being normal cells. But if you look at the tendencies of people nowadays, we are doing a lot of things that makes it very favorable for cancer cells to persist. They don't want to go back to becoming normal cells because there's a lot of acidity. They like acidity because it protects them. Cancer cells are being protected by an acidic environment because when cells turn into cancer cells, they don't usually require the types of support that a normal cell would usually need. Things like water, things like oxygen, things like an alkaline environment. So if you, number one, don't like to exercise, there's a new saying nowadays that says, sitting is the new smoking. There are research that says that if you sit for 8 hours in a day, not standing up, not walking around 8 hours straight, it gives you the same risk factor as if you're someone who's been smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So sitting is the new smoking. If you get yourself up, move around every now and then, not to sit long straight for several hours, you would be able to eliminate a risk factor. You would be able to allow your body to have better oxygenation, better blood flow, if you just remember to keep yourself moving. One of the reasons why normal cells would want to convert into cancer cells is that they are not given proper water supply, they were not given proper oxygen supply, and their environment is always acidic. So if you get yourself moving, you would be able to have better blood circulation, you would be able to provide better oxygen, better water supply, better alkaline environment, so that they would not think about converting themselves into cancer cells. Other things would be watch out for the food that we are eating. Like I said earlier, a lot of the things that's made available when it comes to diet, they're all filled with sugar. And if we continue to have that type of a diet day in, day out, eventually we would actually feed all the cancer cells that's existing inside our body and make them want to just keep on becoming cancer cells because they're receiving good sustenance anyways. So make sure that you are a bit more vigilant about what goes into your mouth, what you're eating, if you want to keep yourself living in a cancer-free lifestyle. So if you look at the situation with TheLifeCo offers practically all these different factors that we can help if you get to learn all these things while you come to the LifeCo, or any LifeCo for that matter of fact, you would be able to have these types of information. And the key is for you to learn as much as you can, and hoping that when you go back to your regular lifestyle, you would be able to apply these things that you learned while you're here in order to live a healthier lifestyle. A healthier lifestyle would mean that you would be able to eat properly, move properly, and avoid as much as possible turning your body into a favorable site for cancer cells to want to thrive in. So a raw vegan diet definitely would be on the top of that list when you talk about what would be a good diet for us to be having if you want to be cancer-free. Definitely a raw vegan option is at the top of the list, or at least get yourself to being vegan. Or we also have an instruction that says if you can be 80% vegan, 80% raw, 20% healthy meat, you would be able to maintain a healthier lifestyle, so to speak. Other things is that we always have activities here that encourage people to want to not stop moving. We have beach walks, we have yoga classes, we have personal training, we have kickboxing, we have a lot of movement exercise that would keep you motivated to want to not stop moving, because that's key. Another thing is when you are constantly moving, you would be able to breathe better. You would be able to exercise your lungs better, expand it better so that your oxygen carrying capacity would increase as well. We also offer you insights on how you should be rethinking about your bad habits. I call them behavioral toxins. There are a lot of toxins that we have to deal with, but one of the most difficult toxins that requires a lot of attention is what I call the behavioral toxins. Things like choosing bad types of food, smoking, drinking alcohol, using recreational drugs, choosing a very sedentary lifestyle, or living in a stressful environment. It's a behavioral toxin because you know it's not good for you, but then again, you keep exposing yourself to it over and over again. And it's up to you to ask yourself, is it worth it to be continually doing these things? I always say that no one on this world would be able to convince someone to stop smoking except himself. Because if you yourself are not seeing why smoking is bad for you, no one else would be able to let you do otherwise. So you have to find that type of a motivation. You have to find the motive why you need to stop smoking. If you are able to find it, then you would be able to help yourself stop that type of a behavior. We do have a lot of different procedures as well that would be able to help you manage the inflammation, control as much risk factors in the body as possible. Things like vitamin C infusions, things like ozone infusions, the hyperbaric oxygen chamber. These are very interesting approaches on how to improve oxygen supply, improve inflammation control, improve immune system status in the body. So there are a lot of options, but it's all a matter of choice, a choice that you have to consciously make on a regular basis so that you may live a cancer-free life. In closing, if you do want to live a cancer-free life, make sure you try to evaluate your exposures, try to evaluate your lifestyle, whether or not you're exposed to certain types of things that would predispose you to develop more cancer cells and avoid them. Okay? Things like diet, things like lack of physical activity, lack of exercise, lack of oxygenation, lack of water intake, those are very important things for you to remember. So if you are able to manage and make sure that these things are under control, then definitely you live a healthier lifestyle. So this has been another episode of Well Together. This has been Dr. Phil from TheLifeCo Phuket. Stay safe and hope to see you soon.
Well Together Podcast. Inspiring stories from the TheLifeCo.
Let's listen, Susie. She was one of our guests in TheLifeCo Phuket. She is sharing her story on the importance of building a strong immunity.
3 years ago, I got diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease called lichen sclerosis, which attacks the soft tissue in my body. 6 months later, it then turned into cancerous tumors. The option that the Western doctors gave me, the surgery that they wanted me to do, was not an option for me. So I've healed myself naturally on a holistic path for the last 2 years, and it's worked. But now I always just need to keep on top of my immune system because I have the underlying autoimmune, which means that I'm always at a higher risk of getting cancer. Anybody that's been able to let the cancer cells run rogue in their body and form tumors means that at some point their immune system has been seriously compromised. So just working on my immune system for me now is probably a lifelong journey. I came here to do your immune boosting treatments. So that was my main focus. It wasn't about losing weight, even though I have lost weight, which is always a plus side. But for me, because I have been unwell in the past, keeping on top of my immune system and making sure it's always strong is totally vital for me.
Well Together Podcast.
Start a special journey to a healthier you at TheLifeCo Phuket. Located on the stunning island of Thailand, TheLifeCo Phuket is a haven to improve your overall quality of life with a holistic wellness approach to body, mind, and soul. Our clinically integrated healing programs offer specialized medical services and natural therapies tailored for cancer prevention and recovery from chronic diseases under a serene atmosphere. Visit thelifeco.com today for a life-transforming wellness experience.
Next episode of the Well Together Podcast.
Journey to self-love, overcoming eating disorders, addiction, and depression.
Thank you for listening Well Together Podcast.